Necrophilia, also known as necrophilism, necrolagnia, necrocoitus, necroclesis, and thanatophilia, is sexual attraction or act involving corpses. It is classified as a paraphilia by the World Health Organization, WHO. In its International Classification of Diseases, ICD, Diagnostic Manual, as well as by the American Psychiatric Association in its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM. Origins of term. Various terms for the crime of corpse violation animate 16th through 19th century works on law and legal medicine. The plural term, necrophiles, was coined by Belgian physician Joseph Gislin in his lecture series, Lacan's Aurélies sur les phrénopathies, given around 1850, about the contemporary necrophiliac François Bertrand. It is within the category of the destructive madman that one needs to situate certain patients to whom I would like to give the name of necrophiliacs. The alienists have adopted, as a new form, the case of Sergeant Bertrand, the disinterred of cadavers on whom all the newspapers have recently reported. However, don't think that we are dealing here with a form of phrenopathy that appears for the first time. The ancients, in speaking about lycanthropy, have cited examples to which one can more or less relate the case which has just now attracted the public attention so strongly. Psychiatrist Morel popularized the term about a decade later when discussing Bertrand. History. In the ancient world, sailors returning corpses to their home country were often accused of necrophilia. Singular accounts of necrophilia in history are sporadic, though written records suggest the practice was present within ancient Egypt. Herodotus writes in the Histories that, to discourage intercourse with a corpse, ancient Egyptians left deceased beautiful women to decay for 3 or 4 days, before giving them to the embalmers. Herodotus also alluded to suggestions that the Greek tyrant Periander had defiled the corpse of his wife, employing a metaphor. Periander baked his bread in a cold oven. Acts of necrophilia are depicted on ceramics from the Mochi culture, which reigned in northern Peru from the 1st to 8th century CE. A common theme in these artifacts is the masturbation of a male skeleton by a living woman. Hittite law from the 16th century BC through to the 13th century BC explicitly permitted sex with the dead. In what is now northeast China, the ethnic Shanbei Emperor Murong Shi, 385–407, of the later Yan state had intercourse with the corpse of his beloved Empress Fu Zuniang after the latter was already cold and put into the coffin. In Renaissance Italy, following the reputed moral collapse brought about by the Black Death and before the Roman Inquisition of the Counter-Reformation, literature was replete with sexual references. These include necrophilia, as in the epic poem Orlando Innamorato by Matteo Maria Boiardo, first published in 1483. In a notorious modern example, American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was a necrophiliac. Dahmer wanted to create a sex slave who would mindlessly consent to whatever he wanted. When his attempts failed, and his male victim died, he would keep the corpse until it decomposed beyond recognition, masturbating and performing sexual intercourse on the body. He would perform sexual activities before and after murdering his victims. Dahmer explained that he only killed his victims because he did not want them to leave. More modern necrophiliacs include Scottish serial killer Dennis Nilsen, and English David Fuller, who is considered the worst offender of this kind in English legal history. Havelock Ellis, in his 1903 volume of Studies of the Psychology of Sex, believed that necrophilia was related to algalania, in that both involve the transformation of a supposed negative emotion, such as anger, fear, disgust, or grief, into sexual desire. Classification in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, DSM-5. Recurrent, intense sexual interest in corpses can be diagnosed under other specified paraphilic disorder, necrophilia, when it causes marked distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. Category A. Cold, destructive. E.g. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Category B. Cold, preservative. E.g. Gary Ridgway, Dennis Nilsen, Carl Tanzler. Category C. Warm, destructive. E.g. Andrei Chikatilo, Joseph Vache. Category D. Warm, preservative. E.g. Robert Yates, Earl Nelson. Category E. Dabblers. E.g. Richard Ramirez, Mark Dixie. Category F. Catathymic, impulsively and explosively lashing out. Category G. Exclusive necromutilophiles, e.g. Robert Napper, Peter Sutcliffe. Category H. Sexual cannibals and vampires, e.g. Albert Fish, Peter Curtin. Dabblers have transitory opportunistic sexual relations with corpses but do not prefer them. Catathymic necrophiliacs commit post-mortem sex acts only while in a sudden impulsive state. Exclusive necromutilophiles derive pleasure purely from mutilating the corpse, while sexual cannibals and vampires are sexually aroused by eating human body parts. Category A, C, and F offenders may also cannibalize or drink the blood of their victims. Humans. Necrophilia is often assumed to be rare, but no data for its prevalence in the general population exists. Some necrophiliacs only fantasize about the act, without carrying it out. In 1958, Claff and Brown commented that, although rarely described, necrophiliac fantasies may occur more often than is generally supposed. Rossman and Resnick, 1989, reviewed 123 cases of necrophilia. The sample was divided into genuine necrophiliacs, who had a persistent attraction to corpses, and pseudo-necrophiliacs, who acted out of opportunity, sadism, or transient interest. Of the total, 92% were male and 8% were female. 57% of the genuine necrophiliacs had occupational access to corpses, with morgue attendants, hospital orderly, and cemetery employees being the most common jobs. The researchers theorized that either of the following situations could be antecedents to necrophilia. A. They are very fearful of rejection by others and they desire a sexual partner who is incapable of rejecting them, and B. They are fearful of the dead, and transform their fear, utilizing reaction formation, into a desire. They develop an exciting fantasy of sex with a corpse, sometimes after exposure to a corpse. Motives. The most common motive for necrophiliacs is the possession of a partner who is unable to resist or reject them. However, in the past, necrophiliacs have expressed having more than one motive. 28. The authors reported that of their sample of 34 genuine necrophiliacs, 68% were motivated by a desire for a non-resisting and non-rejecting partner. 21% were motivated by a want for a reunion with a lost partner. 15% were motivated by sexual attraction to dead people. 15% were motivated by a desire for comfort or to overcome feelings of isolation. 12% were motivated by a desire to remedy low self-esteem by expressing power over a corpse. Lesser common motives include unavailability of a living partner, compensation for fear of women, belief that sex with a living woman is a mortal sin, need to achieve a feeling of total control over a sexual partner, compliance with a command hallucination, performance of a series of destructive acts, expression of polymorphous perverse sexual desires, need to perform limitless sexual activity. IQ data was limited, but not abnormally low. About half of the sample had a personality disorder, and 11% of true necrophiliacs were psychotic. Rossman and Resnick concluded that their data challenged the conventional view of necrophiliacs as generally psychotic, mentally deficient, or unable to obtain a consenting partner. At least one case has been documented of someone have sex with a corpse motivated by the dead person's wishes. A woman in Zimbabwe had sex with her deceased husband's body under the influence of his wishes, documented in his will, and the influence of family members, persuading her to fulfill his wishes. Treatment. Treatment for necrophilia is similar to that prescribed for most paraphilias. Besides advocating treatment of the associated psychopathology, there is little known on the treatment of necrophilia. There has not been a sufficient number of necrophiliacs to establish any effective treatments. However, based on the available data, clinicians are suggested to determine whether or not a patient has necrophilia, treat any psychopathology that is associated with necrophilia, establish psychotherapeutic rapport, provide male patients with heightened sex drives with anti-androgens, help patients find a normal sexual relationship, help divert the necrophilic fantasies to a living object via desensitization.